Get the power to do more with Storable software. More automating, more control, more revenue, more time back in your day. Storable helps operators do more with the most powerful technology in self-storage. Learn more at storable.com/do more.
But without further ado, let's get started. So my name is Matthew Beal. I'm a product marketing manager here at Storable, and I'm going to be your host for the Navigating Uncertain Times webinar series. And we want to start with a little perspective. So over the last couple of months, we've all had our world turned upside down by the COVID-19 health crisis. In an effort to help operators navigate that crisis, we launched this webinar series as a playbook to help solve the immediate business challenges that were presented by it. So whether that was things like creating a contactless tenant experience or maximizing online collections processes during these crazy times. But with the shock and adrenaline starting to wear off from those immediate challenges, we're now looking to write the next chapter of that playbook. And we started this transition about 3 weeks ago with some conversations on how operators should be thinking about deploying automation across their portfolio to combat unfavorable market forces, the COVID-19 health crisis, and shifting consumer preferences. And next week, we're going to be formally concluding the Navigating Uncertain Times chapter of the webinar series, but we're excited to be announcing the next chapter, which is going to be more focused on helping operators get ahead of the curve and really claim a competitive advantage and come out the other end of this crisis stronger than before. So stay tuned on that. But before we get into today's roundtable, I want to take a quick look at our webinar series at a glance. So last week, we hosted a fireside chat with Joe Sapphire, the CEO of Life Storage, and Chuck Gordon, the CEO of Storable. And it was based on both Storable and Life Storage's unique vantage point in the industry. They discussed how both companies were reacting to the health crisis, tracking key performance indicators that were resulting from it, and how they're planning on weathering that ongoing storm. So if you missed that, you can check it out at blog.storable.com. I'd highly recommend it. Really great conversation. And then this week, we have a trio of highly savvy operators on to discuss how they're preparing for the next phase of the crisis and how they're setting themselves up to be successful on the other side of it. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to be having our conclusion to the Navigating Uncertain Times chapter of our webinar series, and we'll be formally introducing our next chapter next week. So we're looking forward to sharing, kind of what's next for all of you guys. But without further ado, I want to introduce our moderator today, Chuck Gordon, the CEO of Storable. So Chuck, take it away.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here again today with everyone. We have a great panel, so we're not going to waste too much time getting into it. I'll make some quick introductions here. Joining us today, we have Jay Schuminsky, who's the owner of All Storage. They have 51 locations in 2 states. Welcome, Jay. We've got Calvin Byrd, who's the CEO of Byrd's Mini Storage with 12 locations in Georgia. And Calvin is not viewable on video, but he is very much with us on the phone. And then we have Jay Fulcher, who's the VP of Asset Management for Morningstar Storage, and they have 73 locations in 11 states. All right, so without further ado, let's get going, guys. Welcome. So real quick, just to kind of set the table, I thought it would be good to talk about what have you guys done internally at your companies over the last couple of months to deal with the COVID crisis? Jay Schuminsky, why don't we start with you?
Sure. We weren't really ahead of the game. Online rentals have been a big part of our business for a while. It really ramped up over the last year. What we've really done differently is taking rentals over the phone, full rentals, so we can text a full document and lease for them to sign. Our offices have been closed. The door's been closed. We have Ring doorbells in the front of every office. So the nice part about those is they're touchless. So people can, have those conversations with us, do the full rental. We say we have to come on the door because people were knocking, and saying, "Hey, let us in, let us in." We're only taking credit cards, so that's also been a big change. Most of our new locations we only took credit card anyway, but cashless has really been the safest, easiest, cleanest way to go. And then we've really taken advantage of our VoIP. It's helped people work from home. It's helped us kind of have rollover. It's also helped us because ours includes an internal messenger service. So we're able to kind of stay more connected, kind of have more problem solved just more quickly. And it's also kind of created more of a kind of a team sense of community. So those have been kind of some big changes that we made.
That's great. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys have figured out a way to operate safely during these times, which is great. Calvin, how about you?
So thanks for having me, but we've been operating kind of close to the normal as possible, like everyone else. But we have 12 locations. 6 of them are already unmanned. We've been doing that for about 10 years now with some of them. So we locked our doors, kind of like Jay was saying, and just went back to doing everything over the phone like we were running unmanned locations. So we changed a couple things the way we distribute our locks to new rentals, but fortunately it was a kind of an easy flow for us because we'd already had everything set up to do online over the phone. We have a system, a phone system dial pad, but it's a voice over IP and you can kind of go anywhere. So we actually had a couple work from home pretty easily, but yeah, so we're fortunate. We didn't really see too much of it was a little different when you had to tell a customer they couldn't come inside and they get mad, but most of them were understanding, but yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's great. And how about you, Jay?
We were a little fortunate. Our senior vice president of operations got a little, what we thought at the time was crazy about coronavirus and COVID coming in. But she got us thinking about, how we could do things differently. So sort of part of our program is that we want to have that customer interaction. So we want people to come to the store, see our differences and those sorts of things. But we had not been doing online rentals. We don't have any unmanned sites. And so how could we make that, customer interaction as viable as possible in this environment, right? So we kept our stores open, but doors locked. So people could still come to the store, and we had started putting into place a lot of different things. So we already had audio or visual tours of most of our facilities, and got those finished off, where people can go on our website and click and do a 360-degree tour of both inside and outside. We introduced live chat back. We took that in-house. Being able to do telephone and emailing and texting the leases, all those sorts of things, but still having that touch point with our facilities was really important to us.
Yeah, that's interesting. Definitely a creative way of making sure that you still have kind of the unique aspect of your brand out there in front of those customers. Okay, great. That's all really interesting stuff, guys. I'm glad to hear that you've figured out a way to make it work. So I guess, kind of in line with Matt's theme that he mentioned of starting to think about, now that we're through phase 1 of this, if you will, what's the next chapter? Kind of once this initial shock and awe has kind of started to wear off here, what do you think the next phase of challenges are going to be? And, what are the risks you think that are out there that maybe haven't materialized yet, but still could? Jay Fulcher, why don't we start with you this time?
Sure. One of the things that we're talking a lot about internally right now is the reopening itself, right? So different states, different municipalities have very different thoughts about how that's going to go, and sort of, we have Georgia, who is pretty much wide open at this point, right, in a lot of their areas, and then we have Charlotte, North Carolina, which I went to pick up something yesterday, and they have even started instituting every other parking spot for the pickup. And then a buddy of mine was in Georgia yesterday, and he went to a restaurant and had dinner, and nobody was wearing a mask, right? So very different. And how are those differences? I mean, we've tried to maintain sort of, again, that the brand and the continuity across the country. How do we continue to do that and make sure that we're serving our customers the right way, and how they'll want to interact with us? So I think that's a big piece of it. The other part is, and we may talk about this later, but from a rate and occupancy perspective, having seen
decreased demand, decreased move-ins, which puts some downward pressure on pricing for a lot of folks. How does that bounce back? Does it bounce back if we continue through a season that isn't what we expect?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. The challenges with different states doing different things right now at this moment are real, and like how is that going to manifest itself in the next few months too, right? Because we'll see. Are the places that are reopening more going to have a higher or a new wave come through, or not? We just don't know. So kind of maybe piggybacking on your comment there about rental rates and occupancies, why don't we, Jay Schuminsky, I'm curious from you, what are you seeing with rental markets rental rates in your markets right now?
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing a rental rate deterioration. It's kind of being led a little bit by the REITs this time, especially in lease-up sites. So again, it's a challenge. Again, the kind of first instinct knee-jerk is to, hey, we got to lower our rates across the board, but we kind of haven't done that because it's so hard to get those rates back. But again, it's kind of being competitive and understanding that in your sales. We also just want to make sure that our protocol is out there. We're trying to take use of badges, for example, like the spare foot badge that we are contactless. We're trying to get that out there because we don't want to lose on those factors. We just like Jay's facilities, we're really Class A facilities, and we really try to sell that. And again, lowering our rental rates just isn't part of the strategy there. So we have to do other things like convenience. We're trying to text different messaging to them. We're trying to make also convenience measures. For example, we have some sites next to large schools. So we've done a couple hundred leases already at those sites this month. How do you space out those leases? So we've really been proactive in contacting the customer before they come to the site, sending text messages, drip system kind of things to tell them how it's going to work, to schedule them, to really make it so they don't come to the site and worry about being crowded. And we've also kind of had to, again, create that protocol with our own employees because, again, there's some fears. So we've tried to use video messaging. And again, we've really tried to, everything has a bunch of different faces. So that you have the tenant facing, you have the employee facing, and you have the marketing facing. So, we're trying to get those messages out on all those verticals. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you feel like you've been able to hold your rates despite the kind of dropping of rates with competitors nearby?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously hyper local. For the most part, we have some of the lease-up sites. We've tried to be a little more aggressive with promos, but the overall, we really have not just changed our rates. We just we're really banking on the visibility and our other marketing, especially lowering the rates right now with extra costs like the protective gear, like some increases in marketing. We really have to understand what the new costs are and really kind of reevaluate what our customer value is worth, because we know it was going backwards. We really don't know what it is like going forwards. Again, as things change, customer tastes and routines. So again, it's a little bit of a challenge, kind of figuring out those things. But we're kind of taking measures and again trying to be kind of proactive and a little defensive for that matter. So again, lowering rates from the get-go is seems a little bit of knee jerk so far.
Got it. That makes sense. And Calvin, how about you? What have you seen with rental rates and also just in general, like move-ins and move-outs? How are you doing there relative to pre-COVID?
So this is where it's nice to be the small guy because we are in Georgia and we're in the outskirt market. So we're not in the metropolitans. We're more in a rural market. So we've been very fortunate and blessed. We've seen a little bit of decrease, about a 15% decrease in April, but the move outs were about 15% lower too. So we pretty much stayed even. And it's been really good. We've, kind of like everybody else, you've got through that hurdle of initial shock and awe and, oh my goodness. Now we opened our doors the 1st of May. We've put some signs up, hey, try to limit 1 to 2 customers at a time in the stores. I will give Storage a shout out, or Storable. The whole email your reservation link that they updated a couple of days ago or weeks ago has been, phenomenal, because we have had several people call in or come by and want to look at one, but then they don't want to come back in, and being able to go ahead and send that out to them to where we can say, hey, look, you can do it all online and do that. It's made them feel more comfortable. But Georgia has definitely been one of the more, I guess, progressive states to try to reopen first. And we're right next to the hot spot, I guess, in Hall County, where all the poultry plants are. But it's been, like, I can't remember which one said, I went out to dinner a couple nights ago, and it's like there's people all over the place, and most of them are in that critical stage, 65 and older, but they're out with no mask. But we've, it's been pretty good here. We've not had to decrease any rental rates, and we've really not even added any promos. And right now for May, I checked yesterday, and we're tracking about the same as we were last year. So as far as new move-ins. So.
Got it. That's great to hear. I mean, the resilience of self-storage in the face of this pandemic is certainly pretty amazing so far.
Yeah, that my fear was what happens if we were locked down for 3 to 4 months, but hopefully that seems to not be the case. So hopefully, because people getting back to work is the biggest thing for self-storage, so they can, pay their bills.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, right? Because, the virus doesn't obviously care if we really want to go to dinner or not. So who knows what the future holds? It's just a crazy time to be where, you can't predict what 2 months out is going to look like. How about you, Jay Fulcher? Have you seen anything in the kind of rental rate and move in, move out volume that's worth noting?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to Jay's good point, it is pretty hyper local. I mean, even when you break down a city, depending on what part of the city you're in, it can make wide swings for what pricing is done. I mean, we have seen in some of our markets, or for some of our stores in some of the markets, competitors drop rate 30+%. That's hard to swallow for anybody, right? We, much like Jay, took the same sort of opinion of, we're not going to chase after what potentially is phantom occupancy or phantom inquiries. If the sort of industry was 30 to 40% down across the board from an inquiry move-in perspective, having less move-ins at a lower rate didn't make a whole lot of sense for us. So we did, sort of in the mid-April, we were down, 3 to 4% across the board from a street rate perspective, but have been building that back up and are actually up beyond. We've been, over the last couple of weeks, been able to raise some street rate, and still seeing the velocity has certainly increased from, where we were in April. I think we finished as a portfolio down about 30% in move-in year over year. Luckily, we were also down, 15% in move out, so not so bad. So far in May, particularly the last 10 to 12 days, those move-ins are picking back up. The bad part is the move-outs are also picking back up. So, I think we'll finish somewhere 20-ish% down in move-ins and plus or minus a couple of points on move-out. So.
Got it. Interesting stuff. For just a point of reference, on the square foot side of things, we watch a number of metrics. One of them, of course, is the average unit price across the country. And to both of your points, the pricing is hyper local, so the national stat is only worth so much. But for what it is worth, the current state of rates is about 10% down year over year across all facilities listed on Sparefoot. And it's been declining on a year over year basis, kind of week after week. So I think everyone would like to see that go the other way, but that is the way the trend is moving at the moment. Okay, great. And then I was also curious, how are you guys thinking about new deals? Are you looking at new deals, or do you have stuff under construction? Do you think this is a good time to buy new assets? How are you approaching that, Jay? Schuminsky, let's start with you.
Yeah, we actually have 2 facilities opening next week. Pretty large facilities. I mean, over 1,400 units. It's a little weird time to open new facilities just for training, for example. That's become more difficult. Some people won't take the job if they have to train with another person. I mean, it's just everybody's on different kind of sides of these things. So staffing and hiring, even though you should be able to hire in this kind of environment, has been a little tricky with the interpersonal contact. We're still chasing things. We're just trying to be a lot more kind of patient and really just kind of keep our keep the particulars in mind. We don't want to. I think there's a new kind of adjustment on pricing, and I feel like it hasn't kind of. There's been a little bit of disconnect, so we're not quite there on deals. People are still expecting the same pricing they had in March, and again, that's sometimes the case on in certain markets, but other markets, it's changed in big ways. I think we have a couple deals under contract, maybe 3, but construction we're still going ahead. We think deliveries later this year are still going to be in good shape. It just, again, we're mostly in Dallas-Fort Worth, and a lot of people out there are really acting like things are back. If we do see a second wave, all bets are off. We've been really lucky that construction was never halted there, because we have 10 other projects in various stages of construction. So a month would just have been, even a month would just been a huge setback for us. So we're taking it. We're being very cautious. We're making sure that the deal works, even and our downside is protected.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Calvin, how about you?
Well, we're actually in the process of selling one, and we're almost hopefully go under contract for another one. So we're kind of buying and selling right now. So we've, it's definitely slowed things down. Both the projects, we would have probably already sold this one and bought the other one by now if this wouldn't have come up. But it's, the numbers have to work. I think some of these higher price deals with these super low cap rates, maybe they'll be the ones that I think are affected the most. On the closing, because the margins are pretty close there, so you got to make sure the next month the bottom don't fall out. But I think as far as if you're buying conservatively and the numbers work for you, I don't see why it should cancel the deal. Now it will definitely slow the deal down, but it shouldn't change the deal, because I think in 6 to 7 months everybody's going to look back and say, wow, that was rough, but we made it through it. So
yep. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And Jay, real quick before we get to Q&A, how about at Morningstar? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, sort of the same thing. I mean, we have several deals under contract. The due diligence on that has been the tough part. Not feeling comfortable traveling to other states from a law perspective. And so sort of the negotiation around what the due diligence period looks like has been interesting. We have a couple of deals in various stages of development, a couple under construction, several sort of going through the process. Courts have been delayed or closed. So, city municipalities, so rezoning and those sorts of things have been delayed, but everything's still moving, just more at a snail's pace. I think lending has proven to be getting a little tougher. So, folks with thin margins on their new projects, I think are going to pretty rapidly find that a difficult thing to get financed. Cash is always king, but sort of reverting back to 2008, 9, 10. I think you're going to see a lot of the same sort of going forward, where those thin deals end up falling off. And so, from a forward perspective, I mean, I think their pressure is going to be both ways from cap rates, right? Rates are probably coming down, but the new supply is also going down. So established units are going to be pretty attractive at some point.
Got it. Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out for sure. And thank you guys for all that insight. That was super helpful. Matt, why don't we see what questions came in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a couple that multiple people were asking. So a lot of common themes. One, I'll give you guys a softball. Would you guys mind just going around the horn real quick and giving kind of the locations which you operate? So a lot of people are looking for kind of context of geographically, based on your answers, where you guys are at.
I'll start with Jay Schuminsky.
Mostly, we have Dallas Fort Worth, we have West Texas, and Oklahoma.
Calvin?
We're in Georgia. We're in North Georgia, so we're about an hour above Atlanta, in between 75 and 85.
And Jay?
We've got 73 properties. We're in 11 states, and we are focused in the Southeast. So we go from Maryland down to Florida, and then west over to Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, we have a fairly large presence in Oklahoma City, Charlotte, North Carolina, Orlando, Florida, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. We've got a few properties up in Virginia, Chesapeake area. We're Alabama, and we're a little bit of wherever in the Southeast.
Got it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And then, so the one question that I'm going to just stick with one here because it came up about 4 times is just the idea of collections and specifically lien sales, auctions, that kind of thing. Now that we're kind of entering phase 2, and again, the shock and adrenaline wearing off as another side of the coin, which is, are we starting to think about that more? I think a lot of people we've heard in our roundtables over the last few weeks kind of press pause on that. So they're just curious how you guys are thinking about that, or if those are conversations that you guys are starting to have.
Want to do the same order? Jay, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. We've held off so far, and we're now planning for late July. We're also planning on not doing any we're trying to do cashless auctions as well, because again, it's an issue. And again, having people on your site, we're also in the process of transitioning to online auction. It probably makes a lot more sense. It's a little more work for the employees in some cases, but long term makes probably the most sense in this new normal. We're seeing our occupancy a little bloated because of all these units that we're not able to auction. So even though we're only, I think, down maybe 2% year over year, it's probably much more. It's just hard to take into account all these people who, again, are maybe in lien, but we're not able to auction their units. So we've been trying to take some money. We're not waiving full rent for anybody though. We're letting people, if you just moved in yesterday and you lost your job, we're letting them move out with no penalty and those kind of things. But for the most part, we've only had maybe a couple at each facility with really bad problems. But our kind of stance has been, hey, if you really can't pay anything at all and it's a month-to-month lease, yeah, we just can't work with you. You have to be able to pay something. It's kind of been our stance.
Got it. Calvin?
So we actually scheduled our first auction yesterday, sent out letters. We're going to start June 25th, I think. We do online auctions. we use Locker Fox is who we use, but we halted them. We didn't do one in March or April, or we won't do one in May, of course. We generally do them monthly, but we have tried to work with everybody. Most of the ones that we're going to be on this next auction are ones that were delinquent before COVID. We've tried to work deals. We take a different approach. We don't like to do auctions. We're not an auction company. We do it because we have to. So we've offered some incredible deals to some of these people just to tell them, hey, come get your stuff. You're 3 months behind. Give us $50. Get your stuff out. 95% of them will not do it. But in our conversations and our documentation that we have offered it due to COVID, and this is not something we generally do, but we have documentations of either email, text, or phone call recordings that we have offered it. So down the road, when, if some lawyer happy sue guy comes up, we can say, hey, look, we told them to come get their stuff for this amount, and we'd give it back to them, and they didn't do it. So that's kind of how we're trying to protect ourselves. But the majority of the ones that we're going to try to sell at the end of June are people that were already delinquent before the actual COVID. So yeah, that's how kind of we've approached it.
That's great. Interesting approach. I like that. And Jay, why don't we close it out with you?
Yeah, same kind of deal. We plan to start back in July. I mean, that's been our discussions at this point from an auction standpoint. Also converting to online auctions from the majority of our stores had in-person auctions. So making that conversion sort of at the same time. And it would be mostly the folks that were, delinquent prior to COVID. We have worked, same thing that Calvin's doing. I mean, we tried to work with folks to just pay something and go, because it's, sitting on our books, a full unit, not paying us anything, isn't helping us right now anyway, right? So, sort of a mix of both guys, from a timing, the way we do it and whatnot.
Great. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for all of your insight today. JJ and Calvin, we really appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck, and I will hand it back over to Matt now to close it out.
Thank you.
You're muted, Matt.
One of these days, I'm going to remember that coming out of here. So yeah, I just want to echo Chuck's sentiment there, guys. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to attend today. It was incredibly valuable insight. We had a lot of really good questions come in, and so just for the audience and for the panel, we'll make sure to share those questions with these guys and see if we can chase down some answers. And like I said, probably early or mid next week, we'll get you guys some answers to the things that we didn't get a chance to get to today. So, but thank you guys. Appreciate your time. So before we wrap up today, though, wanted to go over one quick, exciting recent development that we've also been talking about the last couple of weeks, specifically for the Storable clients out there. So with the importance of automation, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 health crisis, we really wanted to give our customers the tools that they need to succeed. And a few weeks ago, we released our fully integrated contactless move-in capabilities across our platform. And so one of these is what Calvin was referring to earlier in today's presentation. So our team fast-tracked this release to ensure that you guys have the tools you need to succeed, both for your business now, but also in the future. So these innovations stretch across the Storable platform and fall into three main categories. One is the contactless move-in badging on SpareFoot, and Jay Schuminsky alluded to this earlier as well, which allows you to demonstrate to your prospective tenants on the SpareFoot marketplace that you provide a contactless move-in experience, so that it gives them the confidence to know that they've selected the right facility and to move in knowing that you're watching out for them. Also, we have online move-ins directly integrated into the SpareFoot reservation flow. We have SMS and email online move-ins through either SiteLink or storage management software. And so the most exciting aspect, all of these capabilities are available at no additional cost to our customers. So if you want to learn more about these, you can read in our Help Center articles, but we're also going to include those in our follow-up email to the webinar today, so you can learn more about them, and including how to configure them, how to use them, how to make sure your customers are prepared for them. And that concludes today's webinar. So again, if you guys do have any questions that come up throughout the week, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can send us an email at webinars@storable.com. Oh my goodness, webinars@storable.com. But otherwise, to all of you guys out there, just say stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week for our conclusion of the Navigating Uncertain Times chapter of this webinar series. And we're excited to announce the introduction of our next chapter. So have a great day.
Thank you.